Hi everyone, how are you guys? Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to Raising Spirits, and if this is your first time with us, greetings and salutations. We're hanging out in the home bar today, here to do part 2 of how to accessorize your bar, or, different bar accessories you can use to kind of make your life a little bit easier. When we did the first one, I wasn't sure if we were going to do a part 2, but there were a lot of things I left out of that video that I just didn't really feel too good about, so we said, you know what, screw it. We'll do a part 2 and get all those other little things in there. And we'll put it together the same way we did the first video with how, I'll pick out a few things that are I feel like pretty essential to a home bar. And then a few other things that are you could have them, but you don't necessarily need them for your home bar, that kind of thing. So in part 1 we talked about the corkscrew, the waiter's friend, or the shakers and things like this. Although one thing I should mention about that part 1 video is, I put the mixing glass and the shaker both kind of in the category of, you should have these for your bar sort of thing. Which, that was, probably shouldn't have done that, because realistically, all you really need is a shaker. You don't need a mixing glass. Anything a mixing glass can do, a shaker can just as easily do. I just like a nice mixing glass, which is probably why I put it in there. But I would say a shaker is definitely essential, whereas a mixing glass, that's a little bit more secondary. For some people, for me, it's pretty, you need a mixing glass because it looks nice and it's a fun way to mix a cocktail. But I just thought I'd throw that out there for you guys in the part 1. And if you haven't watched the part 1 video yet, I suggest you do that before you watch this one. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's part 2, but it's not a movie. It's not like it's a sequel where if you didn't know what happened in the first one, you can't watch this one. So, but if you like this one, go back and watch the first one, because there's a lot of good stuff in that that'll actually really help you to set up your home bar. So that's it. So without further ado, guys, this is going to be how to accessorize your bar part 2. What accessories you might want or need to make your life a little easier. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, so the first accessory we're going to be talking about today is going to be a paring knife. Now, I kind of left the paring knife out of the part 1 video just because, everybody keeps paring knives in their kitchen, so it seemed a little bit silly to put it in the first video, but at the same time, I felt kind of weird about leaving it out because it is very important when it comes to garnishing drinks. You need to have something around that can cut, right? And, if you're somebody who doesn't particularly garnish their drinks, maybe this isn't as important for you. But I highly recommend you do garnish your drinks, because it just brings your drinks to that next level. And it just makes them taste better, look better, and make the overall experience of enjoying that drink just leaps and bounds from what, just a normal drink without the garnish would be. This particular paring knife is made by a company called Shun. I'm sure some of you, or most of you, have heard of them. It is a very well-known company. They make really, really good quality knives, and this little guy is not a cheap knife. You don't. But the thing is, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a paring knife, you guys, because the only reason I did is because I'm a total sucker for good kitchen tools. So pots, pans, cutting boards, knives. I don't mind spending a decent amount of money on some high quality shit. And Shun is a fairly higher quality brand. It has different degrees, but even the cheapest ones are usually pretty expensive. This is actually from their premium line, I believe. But you can go into most cutlery stores, and they'll have a bin somewhere filled with paring knives that are 10 or $15 or something, and they will work. They will work just fine. So so it is kind of important to have available in your home bar, even if you're not somebody who garnishes your drinks. But again, most people keep paring knives in their kitchen, so you'll probably have them on hand anyway. But most people don't think of paring knives as, part of a bar kit. But I kind of do, because I like to garnish my drinks. But I just wanted to put this one in because I felt a little bad about leaving it out in the first one. So, yeah, a paring knife, guys. Okay, guys, so the next accessory on our list is going to be a juicer. super important because there really is nothing like using fresh fruit as opposed to using concentrate. There's really nothing fancy about this juicer. This is a little cheapy. Was a few bucks. I don't know. I don't even remember. But 5 seconds ago, I'm talking about my paring knife. Oh yeah, I like high quality stuff, and now I'm like, hey, look at this little piece of shit. I love it. It's cheap as shit. I love it. Yeah, that makes sense, right? But yeah, no, a juicer is super important, you guys, because it just having fresh fruit and fresh juice in your drinks is so much better than having concentrate. And once you start doing it, you're not going to want to go back. And like I said, this guy's pretty cheap. It's got 2 compartments, the larger yellow one for the lemons, the smaller green one for your limes. I think part of the reason why it's not too expensive, this one, is, you know, the design of it like could be a little bit better. Like if you don't have particularly good grip strength, you might have a little bit more trouble. It's not really an issue for me, so I can use this, it's fine. But there are some where they're designed to be sat down on the table, and you could literally just use your weight and push down on them to get the juice out. Those are actually pretty cool. But those will probably cost a little bit more. I mean, this thing was probably like not even $5, if I remember correctly. But it does what it needs to do, therefore, it's all good. And yeah, so I would really recommend a juicer just because it's, you know, I can't even begin to tell you guys how much better drinks with fresh fruit are as opposed to using concentrate. I know concentrate's readily available and it's easy to get your hands on, and it's just a matter of opening a cap and pouring as opposed to having to, you know, cut a lemon or a lime and juice it. But truly, this will elevate your drinks by adding literally 1, maybe 2 steps to the process and allow you to enjoy your drink so much more, guys. So definitely a juicer is super important and a must essential in any home bar, in my opinion, as far as accessories go. So juicer, you guys. Okay, guys, up next we've got ice trays. Now, all of us, of course, have ice trays, but I like to have certain ice trays specifically for mixing, specifically for cocktails. These are just some pretty standard ones I got off of Amazon Prime, I believe. This one's been sitting around, though. It's a little bit dirty. I should wash that before I use it to make ice. But you can get all sorts of different molds that make different shapes and sizes. You can even get molds that have like turn into like little ice skulls or something like that. I don't have anything quite like that, but I have trays that make cubes and trays that make spheres. And sometimes the recipe calls for a certain type of ice, you know, cubed ice, crushed ice, shaved ice. But the one thing you always got to remember with ice is the bigger the ice, the slower it dilutes, which is why most of my drinks that I make at home for myself are all just, I've got a big chunk of ice, not lots of ice, just one big chunk. And then that way it dilutes as slowly as possible and I can enjoy the drink as much as I can without watering it down too much by the end. Yeah, so pretty standard. Again, like everybody has ice trays in their kitchen, and if that's all you got and that's all you want to use, that's totally fine. But I think having properly prepped ice for a cocktail or any drink, even if you're just drinking something on the rocks, it's really going to elevate whatever it is. Especially if you like to drink like I do. Like if you like to drink like just neat spirits and actually enjoy the flavor of a spirit, you know, like having just a nice huge chunk of ice in there that will cool the beverage but not water it down too much. That's probably the optimal way to really just enjoy the spirit as much as you can, unless you're drinking it totally neat, which sometimes I like to do, but I also am a big fan of colder drinks. So yeah, ice trays, and I would recommend ones that make bigger cubes because bigger the ice, slower the dilution, guys. So ice trays. Okay, guys, so up next what we're talking about is some sort of a community drinking vessel if you're going to, say, host some sort of party or social gathering. And that could be something like a cooler with a tap on it, or a punch bowl, or what I prefer, which is a pitcher. Now, I take a pitcher over a cooler because coolers are, you know, even a small cooler is pretty big and they're kind of hard to store. And we really don't use them that often, so they're just taking up space. So you want something that, if it's going to be mostly taking up space, you don't want it to be too large. And coolers tend to be pretty big, even if they don't hold that much liquid. And then as far as punch bowls goes, like punch bowls are really nice and they look very classy. And you think of a punch bowl, you think of like high school graduations and staff Christmas parties and things like that. But I prefer a pitcher. Why? Because it's easy, it stores well, and most importantly, it's neat. Like, so a punch bowl is probably the most classy, in my opinion. But when you're hosting a party or a social gathering, like, you know, there's always at least one drunk idiot. You guys know how it is, and when you've got this bowl, like this big ass bowl filled with liquid and a ladle, you know, when people's motor skills are not so good for whatever the reason may be, you know, it might be difficult for them to get the liquid into the cup, and by the end of the night, the whole punch bowl area just is a complete mess and total disaster. I mean, if you're gonna host a party, you take those chances anyway. You know, people drinking too much, spilling things, getting sick, that kind of thing, you know. We've all seen those guys, probably all been those guys at some point. But, you know, with a pitcher, you can kind of help eliminate those risks a little bit. Because even somebody who's a little dizzy probably won't have as much problem grabbing a handle, pouring, and setting it back down. You know, so that's why I prefer a pitcher as, like, my primary, like, community drinking vessel at a social gathering. There's really nothing fancy about this one. This one's a plastic one. Again, because if somebody who's not feeling 100% picks it up, I don't want them accidentally banging it and smashing it, and then now there's glass everywhere. So I prefer a plastic one to a glass one, just for safety's sake. But yeah, so having some sort of community drinking vessel sort of around and readily available for you is always going to be a good idea, just because it, you know, just makes life easier. And something like this, you might have to refill it once or twice, as opposed to a cooler or a punch bowl that you probably won't. But to me, it's worth it to not have to clean it up afterwards, or at least not have to clean it up as much. So yeah, so some sort of community drinking vessel. You know, decide whatever you like based on how much space you have and what you think is good. Maybe if you really like the look of a cooler, or you love the look of a punch bowl, and if you like that, go with that. I prefer a pitcher just because it makes things a little easier, in my opinion. So yeah, but think about it and think of a kind of community drinking vessel. So for me, it's a pitcher, guys. Okay, you guys, and that kind of concludes like the stuff I left out in part 1 that I feel like are pretty essential to a home bar. But I'll throw these few other ones in just, you know, again, just they could really make your life a lot easier, but are they necessary? Eh. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is going to be a peeler. Okay? And the reason why this one's kind of meh is because, like the paring knife, we really all, most people have peelers, at least one, but maybe even like 3 or 4, 5 of them in a drawer somewhere. And what you would mostly use a peeler for is zesting stuff. So zesting your garnishes for your drinks. But really, I mostly do that with my paring knife. I just cut the orange peel or the lemon peel or whatever it is I'm using just off the actual fruit using the knife as opposed to using the peeler. Actually, I've never used a peeler to do that. But I know it does make your life a lot easier, especially if you don't have particularly good knife skills. Not that my knife skills are very great, but I mean, I guess they're good enough at least that I can do that sort of stuff without having to use a peeler. But if you feel a little bit safer with your hands by just using a peeler to zest your fruit, then I would recommend getting a peeler, because it'll make your life a lot easier for sure. And you usually have, like I said before, like we all usually have these in our drawer somewhere. So keep one by your bar and just know that it's there and you can use it if you need to. So peeler, you guys. So up next, guys, we got our funnels in various different sizes. Yeah. Again, are these really necessary? It depends. Like, they're kind of necessary for me because I like to make my own types of syrups, my own simple syrup, my own raspberry simple syrup. Like, I like to make certain different types of things that then need to be transferred into another bottle, which is very difficult to do if you do not have funnels. So if you're somebody who really likes to take their home bar to that next level and prep your own simple syrups or make your own mixes and things like that, then you're definitely going to need funnels. But if you're not somebody who's going to do that, then these are completely unnecessary and you really don't need them at all. For me, I feel like I got to put this in the video, but how many of you out there actually make your own syrups and do all those kinds of things? And probably not a whole lot. So are these super necessary? No, but anytime you want to transfer something to another bottle, that has a small opening, it's good to have these around. So funnels are always good, guys. Not going to drown on about them, but they're good to keep around, guys. Okay, guys, and the last thing I'm going to talk about today are these cocktail picks. I'll bring them closer to the camera so you guys can see them. And these guys are purely just going to be, for garnishing your drinks. This is the sort of thing you'd stick a couple olives in this and put it into the martini, or maybe stick a piece of orange peel in it and put that into the drink, or whatever it is the recipe calls for. These are some stainless steel reusable ones. It kind of looks like one of those things that, like tailors use, like clothing pins. I don't know. I don't know exactly what those things are called. I don't sew shit. So, like, my pants tear, I go to my mom. I'm like, Mom, can you fix my pants? But, yeah, so these just add that little bit of elevation to a drink. Instead of just dropping an olive into a martini, which is what I've been doing on, in the videos, by the way. But I recently started buying up some nice cocktail sticks, or picks, sorry. So now I'll be able to garnish them and make them look a little bit more presentable for you guys. Again, is it super necessary? Not really. But if you're hosting some guests and you bust these guys out and put the garnishes with these, it just makes the drink that much more special, and I think both you and your guests will really appreciate it. So honestly, this is probably more necessary for you guys than funnels, that's for sure. But it's, again, not necessary, but it will really add a beauty and an elegance to the drinks that you make. So, and they're not expensive, so I do recommend maybe try buying some and picking a few drinks that you really like, that you think really are elevated by a beautiful garnish, and let these help you. So yeah, cocktail picks, guys. It's nice to have around. And there you have it, you guys. There was part 2 of bar accessories to make your life a lot easier. Again, same as part 1. Some of them I feel are really essential to a home bar. Others are a little bit more, you don't really need them. But I did feel like we had to make a part 2 and get some of those items into this video, just because, when we made the part 1, I didn't want to make it too long, because at the end of the day, who the hell wants to stare at me for too long? I know I don't. I know when we're watching footage and editing videos, I'm looking at myself and just like, oh God, turn it off. Like, I'm not a huge fan of looking at myself, so... but I hope you guys had a good time. And if you haven't watched part 1 yet, go back and check that one out, because there's a lot of really good stuff in that video. In fact, I would say probably the main stuff is in the part 1, and then part 2 is more about stuff I just felt a little bad about leaving out, so I said, screw it, let's do a part 2 video, and make sure that we just cover everything. So that's why we decided to make it into a 2-parter. But yeah, again, I hope you guys had fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment down below, and make sure we're always drinking responsibly out there. Okay? Have fun, guys. Take care.